Welcome. Okay. Welcome to APE, a brief overview of capabilities. This is a recorded version of the live meeting we did for the Arbortext PTC user group. Tonight we're being given a presentation by Lawrie from Global Publishing Solutions. Prior to founding GPSL, Lawrie was for many years with Advent, the developers of 3v2, first joining them prior to the launch of the 3v2 software in 1987. Initially employed in sales capacity, he served the company in a number of roles until joining the board in 1993 as Group Sales Director and more recently, CTO. With a strong background in international sales, he was instrumental in building initial export markets and overseas distribution for 3v2, spending 2 years based in Europe. On his return in 1993, he introduced Advent to new opportunities in major projects, solutions, and the newly emerging HTML and XML market. First establishing and building the resource, he then ran and expanded the sales and service teams until he was responsible for the required restructuring of the company to serve this new business model. Attracting blue-chip customer base, he successfully introduced cutting-edge publishing solutions and technology to Asia, North America, and Australia, with particular success in the USA, Japan, and India. Following the acquisition of Advent, Lawrie joined forces with other ex-colleagues and solution specialists to form GPSL. Lawrie, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Janice. I'm not really sure I recognize most of the description, but it's appreciated. Thank you very much. I must meet that person. Okay, so thanks for giving us the opportunity to let people have a look at 3v2. What I wanted to do was really just take a chance to kind of show the product off a little bit. Many people would have heard of the product over a number of years. It's now been around for something over 20 years now. It was originally launched in 1987. And it's gone through a number of iterations, as you can imagine, over that period. But in more recent years, following, it was previously known as 3v2, and in more recent years, following acquisition by initially Arbortext and subsequently by PTC, it's become known as APE. And in some respects, it's kind of, its light has been hidden a little bit under a bushel for a period of time. And I think what I'd like to do really is, rather than attack a particular market sector or a particular application, is just give a general overview and a general feeling of what the product is capable of and what you can do with it. Primarily, it's a product that tends to solve problems or address issues for customers. In many respects, that's its widest area of use. It often attracts itself to niche markets. And my intention this afternoon is to initially just give you and show you some of the broader applications through composed pages and things that have been produced in 3v2 and talk a little bit about that kind of thing. And then as we move forward, I'll actually show you the product for real and live and in action, as it were, and you'll see some real work being produced, and hopefully you'll get some idea of the power and the speed and the flexibility of the product. So here we go. Do I have the screen, Janice?
Let me change that over to you.
Thank you.
You should have control now.
I have control. Thank you. So, all being well, you now will have a very fascinating and interesting picture of a grey background. That's my little test to see if it's working, and we should now be able to open up some files. So let me just pop these over to one side. What I'm going to do here is just open up some files and go through and give you some idea of the sort of thing. First of all, there's a fairly straightforward kind of book production. And what's happening now, this is getting loaded into a simple 3v2 default type of screen, the way that 3v2 is used and seen out of the box. There are two versions. There is a desktop version, which is what we're kind of looking at the moment. And in fact, there is the server version, which is more of a black box, lights out, automated publishing solution. And that's what most of our work, not all, but most of our work tends to be. For the purpose of the demonstration, I'm going to obviously keep it visible so you can see what's going on. So here's some stuff that's been composed before. I'm not doing anything clever with it at the moment. And this stuff has been around. Java 2, how long ago was that? But it just gives you an idea. All of the indexing is produced automatically. And what we have in 3v2, if I go down a few more pages, you can still see the index on the left. And as I'm saying index, it's a table of contents, in fact. And then here I'm just paging down a few pages. You can see images on some pages, various layouts and things, some foreign characters there, I think, or some text. And then we have some images. These are low-res images which will print at full res. But what's interesting is that's what you have on the left-hand side is the interpreted screen. On the right-hand side, you actually have the raw data. Now, generally, and nowadays almost exclusively, that's XML. But in fact, it doesn't need to be XML. That could be SGML historically, and a lot of people are still working with that, or really any kind of markup or structure. So that's available to you, and any edits can be made in either screen. So for example, if I zoom this up so you can see this page a little more, we have some text here, and I can select that text on the left-hand side here. And those of you looking may be able to see that on the right-hand side, the same piece of text is being selected. This means that any change I make on the left is made on the right. They are one and the same thing. It's simply a matter of interpreted and uninterpreted. Okay, the little blue code you can see there is to do with the indexing in this file, which isn't done in XML. So this is an interesting file insofar as it isn't using a markup in all respects. It's a combination of both. In many practical production environments, this actually is a good thing, because there are many practical environments where a formal XML or 100% valid parsed XML is not always available. And sometimes, particularly in production environments, they just want to get the job out to a deadline. And there's a lot to be said for having a program that provides that flexibility if you need it. It's not for everybody. Most of our customers work to strict rules, but it gives you an idea. So just bringing that page back in view again, you can see the whole page and the rest of the text. And this is not a huge document, but it's actually 674 pages long. A little bit of info about the screen, because we'll look at it more as we go. If you can see my cursor here, you can probably see that there are a total of 674 pages in this document, and that we happen to be on page 49 at the moment. There's a lot of ways I can go to the end, but the easiest way is to sort of click and sort of put in a command if I want to, so we can say 674, or I can give a command of some other file. Let's just say we go to the last page. It's pretty quick because it actually assembles the pages as it goes the first time out. After that, it'll be faster. So we're now going to be in about 5 seconds at 674. There we go. That's the last page of the document. There's a couple more pages to make. Okay, and if we want to go back now to page, let's say 200, it's instant. There you go. Okay, it's now in the system, and you can now navigate your way around the pages as you wish to. So give you some idea of the sort of speed. No problem with size of files, and you're going to see some big files later that are much more complicated than this, in fact. Okay, so that's just to give you a rough idea and a simple idea of a typical document. A couple of things I will talk about, though, is that the table of contents is typically made on the fly. In this particular case, we have it here, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm trying to click in my information on the left, and I can't, because it's actually generated. It's generated from the data in the file, so there's nothing for me to select because there isn't a stream there. It's simply placed following the rules and things. Okay. All right. On the right-hand side, of course, I still have access to my general text and so on. If I come down a few pages to the end of the index with a bit of top contents, I'm sorry, I'm doing it. And we have the early pages. So if I just, as you can see, there's still nothing here. Page down, still nothing. Go to the next page, place my cursor, and immediately we're back into our normal running text. Okay. And so forth. Just to show that, and to show you how automated it is, if I select the text on the right, I hope that's visible to everybody, you can probably see that we have table of contents, which goes to the index, as you can see from the markup, and then we have about the orders. There is absolutely no content, according to this, between the two. It's produced on the fly and then inserted automatically. Okay, so that's this file. Same with the index, by the way, at the back, and the same with the placement of images. You'll see more of this as we go later, but these are automatically placed. Low resolution, sampling generally, and if you hit the print button, in fact, there are a number of ways we can support OPI and things like that. Alternatively, 3v2 can print the full file. It's up to you, but generally, when you're manipulating documents, you don't need to be carrying the full high-resolution file image in the file with you. So I'm going to close this one down and we'll have a look at something else. So I'm going to say with something a little bit sexy, because a lot of people think, that, especially nowadays, that 3v2 is primarily sort of aimed at the kind of more sexy document, and that's not really true in itself. I'm just going to make a small change to the way we see this document, so we just see it a bit more clearly. And we have this yellow bar that I mentioned earlier, which we call the edit bar. That actually can be manipulated and moved around for comfort, as can the whole screen. So if I wanted that to be over here on the right, I simply need to tell it to do that, and away we go. So here we have the first pages of just a little sample document. This is, I'm going to come past the contents and the activities, which are both made automatically, and go to a kind of a double page spread, which is what you're looking at now. And this still is all living text, although it's over an angle and it's in an image and it's in a frame area. It is in fact real text, and anything that I were to do there would still happen on both the right-hand side and the left-hand side. So if I start to key, you can see that the effect of what I've done is happening on both sides. It's not very pretty, so let's put it back to where it was. But what is interesting here is that the kind of things that can be done, that once, although you've done this, in fact, things aren't static. This is all done automatically, but we can actually move this stuff around if we wanted to, and we could move and rotate the frame more or less. So you can either work this stuff to rules, which is what's happened to make these pages, or you can actually go in and manually intervene with them and things. And we have the ability to move stuff across the page, across the text there. I need to do, let me see if I remember this. There we are. So I can now just cross that, and that now, because it's a double page spread, remember, I've actually moved that image now from that frame from the right-hand page to the left-hand page. If I want to put it back, it's easy enough to do. If I select the right thing, excuse me. And pop that back where it belongs. All right, just page down a little bit, some general sort of graphic information for you. You can see the way the cutouts work. Everything on this page was produced automatically from data, and if I click in it, you can see that in fact we're carrying quite a lot of data that helps with some of it. Some of this is used and some of it isn't, but we're actually saying exactly what the sizes of those figures are and things, because that's the requirement in this particular application. But we're also handling the run around automatically. So we've placed the figure. You can probably see here that we have the figure reference and the cross reference to go with it. But in fact, the cutout is simply because we've told it to follow I think it's called the bounding box, and the text will automatically do that and follow to particular parameters. Sometimes you might want to tweak it, but broadly speaking, it has that ability. But nothing, even though the bounding box is there and it's positioned, nothing is actually fixed. You know, if we were to, should do the wrong thing there. It's impressive. Just 1 second. Let me try this again. If I were to just try to move it up a little bit, you can see that the bounding has changed immediately on that. If I were to bring it across, you can see again what's happening. It's very quick, very simple, and pretty automated. Okay. Also, the ability to take text out and put it into different frames is done on the fly. Again, if I select the text, you can see it's live text. It's pulled from the main data streams, or it might be a small stream that's placed automatically by a reference. All of these things are possible with 3v2, and it's very flexible. Here, this little guide for reading on the right-hand side is handled completely independently, and it's handled as a separate data stream. And in fact, it interacts with the rest of the page, and it's placed probably by a reference, but you could still go in and move it around if that's what you wanted to do. Okay. So going beyond that, another page here, just some general stuff laid out, again, the same sort of principles again, and a continuation of that book. Okay, that's kind of been a more modern perception because people have talked about using 3v2 interactively and for touch-up, but it isn't really what this product is about. The product is really about a much more substantial form of publishing, and publishing much more difficult aspects and requirements for customers. So if I were to go through some of these at the moment, I'm going to show you some catalogue work we've done. And there's some interesting things here to see. Okay, except this is a PDF, so excuse me, I need to bring this in. This is a pre-made sample. And can you all see that okay? I'm going to assume that you can if you don't say otherwise.
Yeah, I can see it.
Excellent, thank you. So what we have here is a pharmaceutical listing. It's quite complex, as I think anybody involved in this area will know. This is all produced completely as a black box application, including the chemical equations that are placed here and so forth. Everything is handled, all of the little icons are generated automatically by content and things like that. We pick up the attribute information, the stuff you would expect. And we're able to make these kind of things work. Now, actually, this as tables go, this is moderate. This is a catalogue, but the underlying structure of this is tables. But this is fairly simple as some scientific stuff goes. So, whilst it probably looks fairly good, it's not the most challenging work that we've ever had. Although you might notice that if we were to look at this section here, the 2-sec butyl 3. I won't even try to say the rest of it. You can see the chemical equation, but you can see the way that the alignment is changed for that, for the presence of that in the text down below it, in the listing rather adjacent to it on the left-hand side where it says density and BP and so forth. Okay, let's show you another file on the same sort of basis. This is another Sigma Aldrich catalogue, which once again I just need to bring across. I'm sorry about this. Okay. Right, and this one is more pictorial and more of a classic sort of commercial catalogue, I guess, business-to-business sort of use and things. And let me just bring that to the full page size so you can see. And again, this is an application in production. It's produced, it runs completely automatically, and it runs in multiple languages, and it's very fast. The lead time for these, I might have this wrong, but the lead time for these particular catalogues used to be about 11 or 12 weeks from start to finish, because they really were sort of fairly handcrafted because of some of the table requirements and the kind of complexities of things that were going in there. They can now run this entire job in less than half a day, to give you some idea. Okay, so as I say, this is really just stuff to give you an idea of what could be achieved. I'm staying with the pharmaceutical theme at the moment. Here's another pharmaceutical customer. And some of these tables are more interesting. If you look at the left and the kind of structure and the way they've done, these are content-driven in structure. So whatever the content is will dictate how the table looks. And you can see the kind of breaking of the columns, the way that we effectively have tables within tables in some of those areas and so forth. And it's pretty powerful stuff, what's happening here. I don't know enough about it to give you all of the buzzwords, but I think anybody that again is really into this quite deeply would understand it immediately. And all of this reference information, I hope you can see in this block here, is also taken care of. There's nothing here that is not fully automated in the solution. And as I say, you can see the tables vary in lookout and shape, and it all depends on content. It's driven entirely by content, that would be. So here you have similar tables that you can see on the left-hand side where it says trace select, that we have a different kind of breaking here because of the amount of content that there is, but also the shape. If it doesn't exist, it exists for most of them here, but if it doesn't exist, then it won't appear, and so on. So, moving away from, I'm not sure if I may be going yet, still more pharma, I'm afraid. This one's from New Zealand. It's their pharmaceutical schedule from the New Zealand government. And same sort of stuff again, different sort of layouts, different sort of tables and things. But again, it's routine. This is boring stuff, but it's really not easy publishing generally. So we fully automate that kind of thing. So now I will come away from pharmaceutical, and let's look, for example, at this one. Here's something from a company that most people would know more well, and it's more of a kind of a customer-orientated sort of job, this one. This is, again, fully automated. It's run in about 26 languages simultaneously, and it really is just a tool catalogue for DeWalt or Black & Decker, as they're known through most of Europe. And again, it's all, the layout and everything is completely driven by the content and what's available to us. Okay. We also do something a little more, I suppose you would call it technical leaflet, technical information for products and things. And so you have something like this kind of thing from Germany, where, again, it's fairly complex. It's not easy to make. and they like to automate these. It's quite a useful sort of job for them to produce. Okay. I'm not going to pick up on all of the details at the moment. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, and here's probably the last thing that I'll show you in these PDFs, and I'll move on to the software now, but there's slightly different variation again of the kind of thing that we're producing in cataloging and in tables. So very flexible, a lot of variation. Here we're using images, some places we're not, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's an idea. Now let's start looking at what we really can do if we're actually in a production environment and how the system might actually work in those environments. So what I'll do is I'll skim over some STM stuff I say skim. I'll actually address the STM in a bigger way. That's scientific, technical, medical in a few minutes. I'm just going to touch into the legal area again to show you a couple of specific features that I'd like you to appreciate, and perhaps touch on languages, and then we'll get into the more sort of heavier type of documents. So let's have a look here. We have, for example, a document here for, okay, sorry, let me run this again, because I'm running a split screen. I shouldn't have done that. Just 1 second, if you excuse me. Okay, this is what we call a black box job. It's been fully automated in production, and I'm afraid it's not pretty because it's not supposed to have somebody sitting looking at a screen. We kind of have gone in, and you're going to see this with other jobs, and we've just kind of said, well, okay, let's just go in there so that we can make it a demonstration. So rather than make demonstration files just showing things, we're giving you real work that's coming from real customers. So we've just, as I say, interfered with the job, if you like. Normally there'd be a job ticket that would drive this. We're just coming in manually and we're getting in the way of it. So we're saying, is it a new job? Yes. So I can say, yeah, I'm happy to save it to that name. I now need to find a file that I'm going to import. Let's take that one. We'll say OK to that. And now it's actually creating and generating the file as I'm talking to you. So it's pretty much there, I hope. Should be, there we go. So there it is. So on the left-hand side, once again, as I said before, we have the interpreted page, or resolved page if you prefer. And on the right-hand side, we have the original text and the original markup and so forth. So there are things going on here. For example, I'm trying to highlight, zoom this up a little bit for you, I'm trying to highlight these notes at the top, and no matter how hard I try, I cannot do it because they're picked up automatically. The other thing is in this file, this particular customer uses flat files for publishing. So as they make revisions, and they make regular revisions, they actually insert attributes into blocks of text. And the block of text and the attribute in that block of text dictates the status, if you like, whether it's been published or whether it's an update or whether it's to be republished or whatever it happens to be. It's actually updated. And the idea here is that 3b2 reads those attributes and knows if it needs to publish or not. So in this particular file, for example, if I highlight text here, the text before the 8.7 nature and purpose on the left gets highlighted. None of that is actually being published. It's all part of the text that's just suppressed. So it's held, but 3b2 recognizes that that block of text is actually of a specific, it's obviously breaks at the periodical markup here, is obviously broken, is obviously of a different status and doesn't need to be published at the moment. Whereas the text that follows needs to be published. And here we go. ST equals N is just new status, so we know that that needs to be published. And it therefore takes it in, and in fact it reproduces the new there. That's boilerplate, the word new. It produces that. And off it goes. So let me just unzoom a little bit so you can see better. So this is the whole functional page. It's the way it sits in the thing. And you can see there's footnotes, you can see the text, and the handling of this is completely automated. And you know, whilst the footnotes themselves aren't difficult, the way the spacing and the way the facing pages work with very big footnotes, what do we do about footnotes when they run over one page, and the size of them, sometimes some footnotes can be several pages long. So we're able to handle all of the rules and requirements related to that. And we're interesting to handle quite interesting numbering of footnotes. So these are numbered, as you can see, these ones here on the first page. On the second page, we have a slight variation, numbering in a different indent. You can pick that up. And I think, no, we don't. Sorry, I'm missing something. Okay, no, we just page down a bit. We have some more typical sort of footnotes. This is interesting because here we have information that goes from 2 column to 1 column automatically on the fly. There's nothing we need to do to tell it that. And there's no markup telling us. So if I just highlight the end of the double column and the beginning of the single column stuff, there's nothing there in the markup that is giving us any idea at all as to what that is, obviously. We have tables, not huge, not terribly complex, but again, there are questions about the way that they align. So what happens if, let me see one. Let's just take this one here. Let's do this. So what happens if this bit here becomes particularly long? Let me just make that better. And you can see that the table has grown for that. If it goes through the page, just redraw it. And I've done that spectacularly well, so well that I overdid it. I'm sorry about it. Okay, so you can see what's happening is that it aligns to whichever is the longest column. So if we now make this one the longest column, okay, it's now aligning to that, and so on and so forth. And there are rules about where to break. So here on the next page, there's not it wouldn't give enough of the page to, if it went to the bottom of the page, there wouldn't be enough lines wrapping to agree with the rules. So it's taken a larger block than it would need to continue that cell on the following page. Okay, there's an idea of the legal documents. Let's move on. I've got some stuff in memory there, so I'm just going to clear 3B2 out of the memory if you don't mind and reload it. Okay. All right, and I said I would just touch on the on some language stuff before we go into the full detail. And here's an idea of a file. Okay. Pause, please. Help, cut. Okay, so I think what we'll do here, let's come back to languages and we'll treat that as a separate presentation altogether. But in fact, 3B2 supports all of the world's major languages, right through to Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Arabic, Hebrew, and other non-Latin fonts. And we'll come back to that separately some other stage. Okay, so what I think we'll do now, let's have a look at some legislative work, which perhaps I could have looked at when we're going. Here, for example, is some stuff at Texas where they use 3B2, and it's a really, I don't want, just in case someone from Texas is watching, I'm not going to say it's an ugly page. It's an unusual page and looks remarkably close to an old typewriter face. And actually, I can tell you that it is. You have no idea how hard it was to get our pages to actually look that bad. Because it was, but they actually want their text to reproduce how it was historically. And they want it to look identical to the old way of doing things. And that's what they've got. In addition, you can see the red underline there. The underline there is a particular red which they actually used to spend money on having pens made to order specifically with a particular red ink in them. We've now had to do the same thing with a Pantone color for them and to reproduce that color. So anyway, that's done. The line numbering is done automatically. The various revision stuff is done automatically. It's not pretty, but it's what they want, and it's important. And right now, you can go to the Texas Legislative and have a look at their bills and their proceedings and things like that, and everything you see up there online will be produced by a 3B2 system. Okay, gives you some idea. What's interesting here, by the way, is we also produce the web pages for them. They're fairly simplistic. They reproduce the pages you're seeing it now, but they do it two ways. One is as a PDF, which is obviously fixed and that's easy. The other one is a bit more complex because what they do, they have it up as a live page effectively, with the text just running. But we still have the line numbering, and of course, the line numbering would normally depend upon the wrapping of the text and things like that. But it has to show the original line numbering from the published document. So in fact, we've taken care of that on the web, and whatever the web is doing, wherever the page is wrapped, whatever the size of the window is, the line numbering will always correspond correctly to the line numbering that is present in the final document. Okay, here's I think this. Let's just have a quick look here. I'm just going to scan over this. I might have some problem with some of my accented characters, but here you have another. I could show the full document, but here's a Canadian House of Commons document. We have French and English lining up, and this is quite interesting because let me just come down here. Obviously, it's bilingual. You can see that straight away. But what is important here, and I'll show you this actually in a live document, so I'll close this down in a minute, is the alignment. We have documents there that have to align on the page. That's quite normal, and whether it's French or English, whichever is longest, is the one that the alignment will be to. But in fact, we have other documents, which I can't actually show at the moment, where you would have a French document, a French book, if you like, or bill, and an English bill, and we have to have exactly the same content on each page. So although they're in different languages, whatever the first word, an equivalent word, is on page 49, has to be exactly what is on the same content on page 49 of the other language, and the final word has to be exactly the same. Or if it's a hyphen, then it has to hyphenate the same equivalent word in the same place. We do that automatically. Although they're totally separate files, running completely separately, 3B2 is able to look and to match them up completely. And if you ask me how it's done, I have to tell you it's magic, because I never understood it. But anyway, we've got that going, and you can actually align them specifically to pages. That was originally done for French and English. It's now done at the European Union for 20-odd languages, and it works. Some languages have pretty empty pages because they're much less wordy than some of the longer languages, like Finnish, which tends to go on a bit, you know, in terms of space and the requirement. But everything has to match up correctly and properly, and it does. Okay. So coming back here now. So let me see if I do have that file. Yeah, I do. Okay. So let me page down a little bit and just show the lineup and the alignment. So we're getting this sort of thing here. Oops. It's probably a good page to go to. It doesn't really matter. I want to make sure. Yeah. So here at the top of this page, you can see quite clearly that we have longer English on the left than we do on the right. By the way, if I click and select my text, you can probably see that we're in main text 2, which is the French text here. You can call it anything you like. It's all XML, and it's there. If I click on the other one, we have another text stream. We're running the two in parallel. They're not in the same data stream. These are two completely separate text streams, and it's the way we actually overcame it across documents as well. So if I now just take some of this text, hopefully I haven't upset my breakpoints too much, we'll copy that and then we'll just paste some of this in, and just give the system a quick moment to sort itself out. And there we go. It's now arrived at the correct alignment for that, and it knows that those totally separate text streams have to line up correctly, and that those are the points of alignment. There are other texts in there where they don't bother to line. It depends on what the status is and what the kind of paragraph type is, whether it actually needs to line up in that way or line in that way or not. Okay. I think probably finally here's some more acts and things. This is from Canada again, but it's not from the Canadian government. This is from a commercial company, and it's pretty straightforward stuff, frankly, but it gives you an idea. Legislation is a very comfortable area for us. So now I'm going to move into some slightly different space and show you some more live stuff. And I think the big one I'm going to show you at the moment is really on a technical document. And this actually is an aircraft manual. And I want to show you a number of things. First of all, it's a real production version, and it's not pretty. And we've got in there, and we've sort of we've made it so we can get in there manually and overcome it. So this is what we're going to do now. So let me run this file, if I may. Okay, and so I've opened this file up, and it's now, because we've had to get in the way here, it's now asking me for some information. This is just to protect the innocent, as they say. But I'm going to pick an instance, and the instance I'm going to do is a baseline. So I'm going to run an original document effectively, and we can see how big they are. I don't want to make something too big. But if I were to take, let's take chapter 54, okay, and we'll bring that in, and it's SGML in this case, and the Boeing are not about to change from SGML at this time, although they had kind of a bastardized, if I used to say that, XML combination that they have been using. And we need to set a checksum date. Well, we'll set a checksum, and we'll take a date, and we could make it anything you want. But I want to choose a file name so that we know that it's new. So we'll just call it new as our checksum. In fact, I'll call it a new base. It's clear which one it is, and I'll OK that. And I have no previous to compare to, because obviously if we do revisions and updates, we need to think about what we're doing. And we can choose a date. So I'm going to say 1st of April 2000 sounds like a good date. Let's just run it and let it go. So if you look at the bottom of the page, I hope you can see this, that it's importing a lot of rasters at the moment. It's saying TIFF. I can show a lot of them now, CDMs and things, but it's imported all those files. That's read from a list. It gets a list of stuff, and it needs to go and get it. It gets the reference information with it, and then it will place it all automatically. It's now assembled the page, the text, and it's now formatting the whole job. And and I don't know if you can see at the bottom of the page that as I speak and speak more, it's made about 460 odd pages, I think, something in that order. It's now just going through the final sort of structures and things that need to be done. And I have a feeling somewhere here. There we are. Right, it's now running the print. I was expecting to see a little box saying printing, but it's running the print, and it's now printing the job. And in this particular case, it's going to print every single page. Okay, so in not a lot of time, a quick minute or something like that, we've actually assembled the job from scratch. We've created indices. We've created, as you're going to see in a minute, some other stuff that's quite interesting, I think. And we managed to knock the pages out in 14.8 seconds. That's 400 odd pages to PDF. And I can show you that. The file is called EMOD2 3D at 3F. We can have a look in a minute. We can open that file up, and that's what I'm going to do. Okay, just to let you know, the speed we've run at is equivalent to 112,000 pages per hour. And you can see that in the counter here. Okay, so let me go and find the PDF first before we do anything. So let me bring this just for you here. And here we are, the 7th of the 7th, so in chapter 54, that's what we made. So let's open that up. And here it is. So it's not a pretty file, it's not intended to be pretty. But first of all, we've used 3v2's built-in PDF driver because it is very fast, as you've seen, and has certain advantages when you know, if you don't need the specific sort of sexy features of PDF, then it really has massive benefits for people in the business of just high volumes, high density type publishing. So, and we've produced all of the bookmarking information and things as necessary, and we can navigate through the PDF in the normal way. So if I click on something, it'll take us directly. It's just a perfectly normal PDF file. Okay. What we do have, though, is something quite interesting, I hope, here. As you can probably see on the page I've got, it's called at the bottom effective pages, and it is because it is an LOEP. It is a list of effective pages. In fact, it's not very informative at the moment because this was a baseline, so every page was effective because there was nothing to compare to. But we get the basic information. Every page is dated. We know what's blank, where there's been blank sheets or leaves left, or blank pages preserved and so forth. And we've got the various headings and so forth. And this is all the way through. Whether they were added, revised, the status would be there. In this particular case, everything is new, so there's no specific status. Let's just keep going down. And there are several pages of that. Going through the rest of the file, okay, all of this is produced automatically. It's not terribly complex. It's about speed and industrial strength. But the data handling, I have to tell you, is massively complex. And the data handling is really where the significant issues are and where we had our big successes with Boeing in our abilities to be able to circumvent these issues. We managed, when we produced this solution with them, and over a period of time, this didn't happen in 5 minutes, we managed to take 3 clear processes out of their production routine, and the whole system came down to 4 processes at the end. That was pretty good. And the project leader said that the great thing about what we did and what 3v2 did there was not just about the pages and the speed, which was important, and we exceeded our expectations there, but it was what the ability to handle the complex data and so on enabled Boeing to do. For example, all of the pre-processing of the data that they were doing was thrown out if they didn't need it anymore. All of the requirements for the list of affected pages and the change pages that they were doing didn't need to be done. They had a complete process that would calculate it all in advance and then feed the information to the software previously, which was Cyvision. And then once it was published, that information would then be updated. The way we work, they just send us the information, and you're about to see it. We produce the new LOEP. We print only the pages that have changed, and we update their management system with all of the information they need about the changes that have taken place. All of that's done on the fly as part of the production process, and you're going to see that right now. So I'm now going to take the same files. I'll leave this in the background, this box, so you can see what's happening here. And I'm going to rerun the job. So let me close this. Okay, so this time, I'm going to take not the same instance, the rebase, but this time I'm going to take a revision. It was chapter 54, I think, I would say. And the new checksum we'll call new ref. Seems like a good name, doesn't it? And the old one we'll call up, which was new base. So add that to the system. Okay, and this time, I'll try and keep it simple, but we can put a new date in, so I could say 21, I don't know, March. And we could say 2008, just for argument's sake. Right, and we can run that job again. And again, at the bottom of the page, you can see us producing the TIFFs, so bringing the CHIFs and the CGMs in and so forth, and getting all the reference information. By the way, we can resolve unique references within these files and things as well. We're now formatting exactly as we did before. And you're going to see a similar page count to before, because this is the way that we deal with all the things that need to be done. So that should stop there. We go at about 460 or whatever it was. It's now formatting the pages again. That's to say it's now rebuilding them again. And it's doing several things, and there will be a bit of a pause in a minute while it's doing it. But what it's actually doing is it's rebuilding. It's effectively run the base and the revision together. It's now printed the first part effectively, all right, which was 464, which would have been the whole thing. And now it's going to actually deal with it'll overwrite that file with the revisions. Okay, and I don't know if you can see, but this time it's going to print a lot less pages. This time it's actually going to have printed, there we go, 225 pages. Okay, a bit slower, only 68,000 pages an hour now, because it's not only doing the print and taking it's actually comparing checksum values and things for the pages that need to have changed and putting in the change markers. It's building the new list of affected pages, etc., etc. So now we've finished that. If I bring these pages down to just a visible zoom, you can see that we have the list of affected pages, and you can see that some of these dates have changed and some of them have a new status. They have an O status, okay? All right, which is overflow information. Okay, let me just bring that zoom down a little bit so you can see a bit more. And it looks like pretty much everything there is just overflow. We don't have any specific other. Oh, we do. We have a revision there on page on 103 up here and so forth. That's what it's produced. I can show you through the 3v2 file, or alternatively, I can take you to the output file, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's this output file called leaf. So let me just minimize the screen and just bring that across. Okay, so here it is. It's exactly the same as before, except it only has, I can assure you, the pages that it needs. So now, when we're looking at this, we now have exactly what you saw just now, but we have the revisions, we have the overflow information, we know which leaves, and the only leaves that it's printed, and that's why there's only 200 pages here, are the ones here that have been identified as needing to be printed. Everything else is left. It's a way of handling change pages that suits Boeing in my project. Okay. All right. Good. I'm tempted to say any questions on that. Stunned silence, I like. Okay. So no. Right, so let's move on a little bit. We have some more fairly technical, oh, that's clever because I've now had a typical habit for me. I've closed down my directory that I wanted to use. Excuse me a second. Right, let's bring that back. I've got 2 copies of 3B2, that's interesting. Right. Okay, so now I think in other areas we have some other interesting stuff. This again is related to airline or aerospace or whatever phrase you would like to use. So let me open this one up. Oh dear. What am I? Ah, there we go. Sorry, I've got to look at this. Yep. Okay, I had a dollar box open. So I'm going to close this. I have a better version of this file. I'm sorry. Just kill that. Definitely gone a bit quiet there, hasn't it? That's embarrassing. Not for the first time. There we go. Right, let me just close down and get going again. Keep opening additional copy. Okay. Ladies, do excuse me. I'm going to ask you to pause again. Sorry.
Recording now.
Okay, so what I want to show you here, and I'll open up another file that perhaps has a better example of it in a minute, is just the ability to join pieces of text together where they need to be joined. So we can add to that text, and what you'll see is that the line connecting the yes and the no blocks and things moves around. We can do this in quite a complex environment, and again, it's a typical application used in the ATA environment. So let me close this one down, and we'll open it up in a file from that environment there. So take this one. And here you can see the kind of thing that's going. So, if you lose all power, this is what you do. Do your engine instruments work, yes or no? And you follow the process through. This is for the emergency sort of systems and so forth. If I now enter and write some additional lines in here, you will see that, in fact, we can just take it from the challenge. Okay, and if I just add a couple of these, and I just want to make sure I get to the right place. Yeah. So that's fine. Yeah. So let me just do. And if I just add these lines in, as you can see, that line is growing correctly and accordingly along with it. So you're able to produce these. I don't know what they call them, but these kind of paths of selective options and follow different routes. We've got them showing 2 routes, but actually you can connect a number of items together. We just need to set the reference point. Gives you some idea. Okay. So let me just close that one down. And we'll move on now with something else. And I think here, just to give you an idea of a kind of a car manual that's been made, if we're staying with technical documents. Oops, so we have this kind of thing. It's produced from 3B2. This is actually, it's a real manual, obviously. And it's actually from Bentley, just to give you some idea. Okay. And then I think beyond that, this might be a moment to take a break then and a pause, which was your suggestion.
Recording.
Okay, thanks. So I think now we'll move to STM, which is a slightly more interactive sort of environment. And I think I'd like to sort of just take you really down the route of some journal work that we've been doing on a fairly, well, for many, many years now. And what I'm doing is I'm opening up a journal as it might work in a production environment. Again, it's a fairly automated process. In this particular case, I'm going to bring in an instance that we'll take from here, let's say. I'm loading this file. And I need to just indicate the route that we're going to use for these images. And I'm not actually sure if I'm in the right place, excuse me. It's not, is it? Okay, I'm sorry about this. What I will do is just paste that down in there. Speed, there we go, and we'll OK it. So now you'll see a number of images came in very, very quickly there. We're now bringing the text in and we're formatting the pages as we go. And we've hung, ladies. I'm sorry. Pause.
And go.
All right, so a bit of a false start, but I need to look at the let's show you now and see what we can do with the STM. So let's go into that area, and we're particularly strong in the area of journals. And I'm going to show you something from Elsevier, and we'll have a look at this particular journal here, and we'll bring in this a particular instance that we want to use, which will be this one, and we'll bring this in. We'll there, so we get the wrong directory, and we'll OK it. Okay, so there we are. Speed is very quick. Here, the little dialog box that's popped up here is just to check to make sure that all the entities that appear have been defined. It's completely optional. It's something that we add to it if people want to have it. In this particular case, when you're dealing with a lot of scientific stuff, you can get some very obscure characters that might only get used once a year or something, and this kind of highlights if something's coming in that you haven't seen or properly defined before. It's just a double check. So here's the page. It's a typical journal article page that most people will have seen before. There's not a lot of interest in it from a pagination point of view. It's fairly straightforward. But there is some stuff that we're taking care of automatically that's quite handy, and again saves a lot of pre-processing in most environments. For example, here is the author's name, and immediately after his name, if you look on the right side now and I highlight, we can see his email address is being highlighted, his location and things. Well, actually, I'm getting the Georgia Institute, and if you look at the top of the left-hand page, you can see that moving as I select it. In fact, the information that is now highlighted is more than just his name, but that doesn't appear. That information is actually appearing down in the bottom right-hand corner of the page here. Okay, you can see there's a phone number and an email address. Not only they're appearing there, but the order has actually been reversed. So you can probably see that the email address now follows the telephone number. Not important, but we pulled it out. And if I were to make a change there and give this guy some other kind of name, okay, I have to tell it to effectively recalculate the page if you want. So let's do that. And we'll redo it, and you can see the email address now on this left-hand side has now changed to reflect the change. It changed to reflect the change that I've just made. Okay, so that stuff is happening on the fly. It's happening for real. We go from a single column to multiple columns again. We're aware of the context sensitivity and where we are in the document. There's a lot of ways of doing this, but in this particular case, P text will occur pretty much anywhere. If I highlight a P tag here, that represents the abstract. In terms of the running text, if I highlight some of that, you'll see that we have a typical P in the running text, and we would have it, if I were to go to some kind of caption down here, you would actually see, in this particular case, you wouldn't. I've obviously chosen the wrong example, but you would normally see P text. Here we go. We've got some P in the table caption here. So it occurs in many, many different ways and many guises. paratext, PText, whatever you want to call it, we're able to deal with the context sensitivity at any time. And I happen to know how this is done, but I can just say, look, if I want to know what's in P abstract and make a change only to P abstract, then I can open that up, and I can say that in this case I'll do it just by the menus here. I can go in here and like say, let's have red text instead of black text. I can say OK, that's all I need to do, and now we have red text only where the abstract text is, and not where the other instances of para are. Okay, just gives you an idea of the sort of thing and the way 3v2 works. Okay, the placement of images is automated, and it's worth pointing out that actually these are low-res images. These are very low-res. They're just brought in as samples, effectively, sometimes no more than 2K, of a sample or something. And the pages are assembled, and the 3v2 places items according to rules. So I'm going to go back up a page. And this particular page, it's followed the rules. The rule is obviously there's a reference there for that particular figure or illustration, and the placement rule is obviously to have it in this particular case to the bottom left-hand column. Now, in normal text, one of the problems with STM publishing is that however good your rules are, it's very difficult to make perfect pages because of the kind of content that's on those pages isn't necessarily pretty. And when you have, for example, here, running text that contains a display equation, it's difficult to actually separate the image from the equation, but they don't look good together. So you need a degree of interactivity, and this is where 3v2 scores so very, very strongly here. We can actually take this and we can say, okay, it doesn't look right there. It doesn't matter, that's in the rules, but it doesn't look right. It really ought to be here. That makes more sense. The page looks better, and now we can move on and worry about something else, because that page is already fixed. It's very simple, very straightforward to do that. Doesn't affect the reference or anything like that. It simply helps with the aesthetics of the page. Okay, let's go down a bit. This next page, this one's quite interesting. We have some rules about gaps and things. And we have some rules here about positioning and sizes. So one of the things, and I think you'll see it in another page in a minute, is that we can automatically test for size and how we're going to resolve something. So this particular table, 3v2 would have constructed on the fly. We obviously support cows, but in this particular case, I happen to know that it's not cows. It's a specific markup from Elsevier, and in that markup, it's similar but not quite the same. Where I'm going with this is that we can support pretty much any kind of markup. It doesn't have to be a specific CALS model or something like that, although we put it in the library. You actually, in a number of customers, actually have their own markup for different reasons for specific areas. In this particular case, the sizes of the spans and the columns and things are not dictated. So we run a test and we have a look and see that within the rules of the formatting and the alignment and things like that, can we fit that table in a single column? If the answer is no, then we don't. If the answer is yes, then we do. And if we don't, then we have to center it across the two columns, top or bottom, and that's what we would have done here. It may well be that if it fitted in a single column, depending on the journal, it may be that we would allow that to be a floating item within the running text, so it's always close to its point of reference. In addition to that, we've placed these images automatically against their points of reference. But as you saw before, there's nothing to stop us moving one image against another if that's what we want to do, stacking them or however that wants to happen. And whenever we make a move, we do take also, we take our captions with us as well, obviously. Okay, just go down another page. So here we had, I said about a test. So, you can see here is a table that fitted in a single column. There's no instructions to how many columns we tend to use. And also at the top there's an image that didn't quite fit into a single column. So again, we've tested that. And 3v2 also has the ability to not only test, but to decide on an adjustment. So if you set it a rule that says, look, if it doesn't fit a single column, but a 10% reduction in the correct proportions will allow it to fit, then put it in a single column. If not, retain its fixed size and center it over two, and that's what it's done with this particular one here. And this is where the pages get more complicated, because you can see, that we've had to apply stacking rules to this page and how we combine different bits of information and so on together. The maths is real maths. There is a complete implementation of tech within 3v2 for maths. And then beyond that, beyond the tech, we can then get maths to work with any kind of markup whatsoever. So in this particular case, this is the maths markup for that big equation that's there. This is Elsevier's own form of markup. We can also support MathML, and we have a complete library available. We can obviously support TeX and LaTeX and so forth, and we support other types of maths that are coming in. So if somebody has their own way of doing things, it's not a problem. We just have to tell 3v2 to recognize it. Okay. So it's also interactive, actually. It might be worth just doing this very quickly. So it's a long time since I've done this. I could regret it. Let's give it a try. Let's say that we were going to just insert a bit of display text where we are now. You know, we could put this in if I wanted to directly as TeX or whatever markup you want to create. In this particular case, I'm just going to go sum of A plus B. It really is a long time. Let's see, there we go. And then we could apply the, if I get this right, the correct parenthesis. And we should be able to say scribble there. And we immediately change the context of the equation, if you can see. All right? Quite handy if you're in this environment. Okay, very easy to make those changes. Okay. Coming down again. Okay, this is an AUGI page. Very little you can do with pages like this. These exist. You can't hide from them. This is what STM publishing is about. So you've got an image there that has, it looks better in full res, I'm sure, but just has a series, I would think, of charts or graphs or something that are results. It's not pretty, but it's there. It's essentially information. They're probably scans of scans in a typical environment. And so we can either put them on a page on their own, or we can keep so many lines, or we can say a minimum or maximum of so many lines. It's completely up to the customer to give us the rules. There is a rule in 3b2 that we use, and it applies to everything, not just the STM type stuff that you're looking now. It really applies to everything. And that would really be, if you can describe the rules by which you want the system to operate and to follow, then there's a good chance we could do it. You know, provided the rules don't depend upon whether it rains on a Thursday or not, you know, and that they are truly logical, then we can normally recreate the rules in a publishing environment for 3v2. That is the rule of thumb, to use the phrase here. Okay, and then finally, towards the end of the article, you've got column balancing, obviously, but we've got the references to resolve, and we can handle Harvard or whatever kind of business references and bibliographic references that we wish to. So that gives you an idea of an STM document and the kind of features that might be of interest in that. The other thing is obviously all the running heads and footers are created automatically, and there's some stuff that is not so much in this particular file that we're looking at now. I don't think I have another one handy right at this moment. Let me just check if I may. Okay. But if you have multiple authors, you know, it's small things, but the software will automatically insert the comma, comma, and separators as necessary. And as the running headers, typically if you have more than two, then you will quote the main author or the two authors, and you will say et al, and all of that is taken care of automatically. There's nothing to do with 3v2, we'll just do it. Just tell it what the rule is, and off it will go. Okay, that's pretty much the STM show for the moment. There's a book I think we could show you as well that's related to that. Let me bring that in now. Let's go this route. Okay, and let's go to Lawrie's. It's just a book from Lawrie's. Just check what we've got here. Okay, so I just need to bring in the XML stream, it seems. Okay, that. Okay, so now we're making another book. It's not terribly big by the look of this, and we'll just bring that down to view. So here we are. This was made though in that particular time. So we've made an index. We have margin notes or margin information. It could be either. Footnotes. We have some maths. We have some background stuff on some of the styles. We have more maths. Test section. This is a test doc, obviously, looking at this. Okay, we have. We can rotate these tables on the fly. They can be rotated by just testing the measure again. If it exceeds the measure, rotate. In this particular case, there may have been a control for all I know to actually do the rotation. We're still in just the main text stream, so Let's go up a page and let's just see where this kind of ended there. That's the end of a table there. And this now is the rotated table to follow. Rotated is a test anyway, but anyway, so there it is. And this now starts off that rotated table. But the interesting thing about the rotated tables is that even when you can see them, they're actually, as you can see, fully editable and fully live. So it can be treated just as any other piece of text that's made. Okay, some more information there, some more sort of examples, tests. This is to do with the UTF stuff and things, gives you an idea. And then we actually have a bit of language stuff, which is going to lead us nicely into some language work that we're going to be doing something shortly. So some Arabic stuff there. Okay, so final thing I want to show you is actually the language information. It's just to give you okay, so here we have a number of pages of languages. We have Chinese. If I page down, we have more Chinese. We obviously support vertical or traditional right, left to right, or more recent. We have the Japanese, and we deal with Japanese classic as well as the more traditional. We support rules like rubies and so forth. This is a full typographic implementation of Japanese. These are Ruby type pieces of information where you have an explanation about the character next to it or above it if it's working horizontally. And we have the rules built in for handling of Latin type text, such as the name of the software and things like that, where depending on the length and the style that you want to use, it's either inserted in this manner here, vertically but on its side, or it's actually inserted in this way with certain rules about the width of the column that it's allowed to take and so on. All of those things are built into the software. We just need to know what you want to do, basically. Okay, let's go down the page again. Here's some Arabic. This can be quite interesting if I just zoom up on this for a minute, because it isn't just Arabic and an Arabic stream. But if you have a look, the cursor moves correctly. But please keep watching now as it goes to the English phrase or the French word it's about to join, and without me doing anything, it automatically changes its direction over again. It's completely integrated in terms of whether it's in Arabic mode or Latin mode or right to left, left to right, top to bottom. You know, you don't have to kind of go through hijinks to kind of get it into the Arabic road. You don't have problems mixing the languages together. It'll even hyphenate the French part correctly and the Arabic part correctly. Come back out of that for a minute. We have a bit more information of Latin and Arabic together. Typical French. And then we have some Greek here. Russian, just gives you an idea of stuff. And that's it. That pretty well wraps things up. So that brings me really to the end of where I was hoping to go. I hope it's given a good overview of 3v2, and I'd be pleased to kind of talk to anyone offline or have any, or accept any questions or thoughts if anyone would like to bring up at the moment. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Lawrie. That is fantastic. I particularly like that cursor thing. That's just fascinating. I don't think I've seen anything like it. All right. So this is the end of our podcast for about 3v2 and APP. We want to thank Lawrie Stevens from GPSL for presenting it so fabulously today and showing us all the kinds of things that it can do. We thank the Single Sourcing for presenting the facilities to record it today. All right, thanks. Janice, you want to hit record?